everybody, welcome to the WWE Slam here on the Dupont Network. I really appreciate you joining me here. We've got a lot to cover. SummerSlam is a week and a half away, and we've got a lot going on in WWE. And we're going to cover Monday Night Raw in detail with Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair, now official for SummerSlam. A very poetic rematch from last year when we had Becky turn heel, beating Bianca in the 26 seconds. So we're going to get into that and everything else that happened on Raw, including Logan Paul and The Miz, who main evented the show. And WWE tried their best to make Logan Paul a babyface. So we'll see how that worked out. I'll give my opinions on that. But before we get to any of that, I want to talk about this report, this rumor, but nearly confirmed rumor, that WWE is going back to TV 14 and what the implications of this are. Now let's just go with the premise that they're actually going to do this. Because could it still be fabricated news? Could it be something that WWE talked about and is ultimately not going to implement? Sure, that could still take place. But it seems as if with major news outlets reporting, with Sports Illustrated, Wrestling Inc., we have, Sportskeeda, Bleacher Report, among many others, that have reported that this is something that WWE is considering and will likely implement in the near future. Let's take a bit of a dive into what this could mean for WWE and the pros and cons of it. But before we do that, guys, if you haven't yet checked out the WWE podcast, I really would recommend that you do that, because we have a podcast that drops nearly every single day, and we are available on every single podcast platform that you could think of. And we drop review shows for SmackDown, Raw, week in review, pay-per-view reviews, NXT, AEW, you name it, and we cover it. So I'd really recommend that you check that out, as well as go to Patreon and get your ad-free audio for $1 a month. Patreon.com/WWE podcast. I have a link at the bottom of this video. So let's dive into TV 14 and go with the assumption that we're actually going to implement it. Now, the first thing you have to look at is, why are they doing this? Why are they suddenly deciding to implement TV 14? Well, I think some of it may be due to the bad news going on with the chairman, the investigation going on with the chairman, and the investigation going on with the hush money, the $12 million hush money. So I think there is some validity to that. But it has to be bigger than that. That's a very short-sighted decision for a long-term consequence to turn their entire product to TV 14 just to distract people from what's going on with Vince. Do I think that's a small part of it? Likely. But what's causing this? Stagnation, probably, in their ratings. It's been flat for many years now, and even has declined. When you look at the ratings and you look at the overall subscriptions to Peacock and the WWE Network, they've been leveled off for quite some time. And so I think they're doing this to inject a feeling of freshness, of something that WWE has not had in a while. The actual feeling that anything could happen at any moment, when in fact the product right now feels the exact opposite. Now, I think that's what's precipitating it, is the money. Has to be, right? The money. Why would they not want to implement this strategy if they didn't have a financial benefit perceived to be behind this? So I think they think it would bring back some of the people that have fallen off from Ruthless Aggression and before that with the Attitude Era. I think some of those people, especially those my age and older, that were watching during the Attitude Era and Ruthless Aggression, that fell off. And they saw WWE go soft in 2008 with the PG era. So we've had 14 years of the PG era. I think they think that if they promoted this, and they should promote it, the hell out of it, they shouldn't just drop it randomly on a Monday Night Raw. You see like the TV 14 tag at the top. No. They need to promote this, because that is something that is a big deal after 14 years. So I think that they think some of those people would come back. Now, they're likely right in that respect, but in order to keep those people that maybe fell off, they can't just do a hot shot, one show, let's see what they do, not thought through, right? Like they need to take this TV-14 rating and use it appropriately. Use it in a way that they could actually have long-term stories that make sense, bring back some believability, bring back cussing when needed, bring back blood. That's a huge one for me. Now, I'm not saying advocating for chair shots to the head. Just because the TV rating changes doesn't mean the safety of the performers, the wrestlers, should change. But I think TV-14 would open up a whole new audience, or rather bring back an older audience that maybe went to AEW because they wanted that more edgy product. They didn't want the family-friendly, soft, kumbaya product that WWE has been pushing forward with for the past 14 years since 2008 when the PG era began. So certainly there is some truth to that. I think they will get a spike in ratings. But ultimately, and what always will drive ratings is star power, believability, character depth, and quality wrestling matches. Period. And they could still do this within the PG era, in PG cap, but I think going TV-14 opens up the creative box. Right? You don't have to avoid some of the cussing, some of the edgy storylines, some of the things they'd like to do but can't because of the limitations of being PG. And does that mean edgier, racier, sexualized storylines? It could. And I just hope that they don't take the women's division and retrograde it back to Playboy pillow fights and bra and panties matches. I think there's absolutely zero chance of that. But thinking about where that was, what TV-14 meant for the women's division in 2008 and beyond, and prior to that, was just sexualizing the women to the nth degree. But taking the TV-14 tag now and sticking it on the women's division would breathe new life, not just into the men's division, but the women's specifically, because we've never seen the women with this quality of wrestling, with this roster, with the TV-14 rating, and what that could mean. So the women's division really interests me from that perspective of what could they do with the women? What could they do? What kind of storylines could they come up with? What kind of more deeper characters could they come up with? And there's a lot of fun to be had with that conversation. But all right, well, let's take your first break of the show here, and we'll come back and wrap up the TV-14 discussion. I don't want to drag on too long, but I want to talk a couple more things about it from a business perspective from WWE and the creative perspective that fans want to see. And we'll talk about that and, of course, wrap up Monday Night Raw right after this. All right, let's talk a little bit more about TV-14, as I said, and then we will wrap things up there and move on to Monday Night Raw and maybe talk a little bit more about SummerSlam as well, as there are a lot of SummerSlam implications going on right now. So what I'll say about the rest of TV-14, I mean, I'm excited for it, right? Like, I'm an Attitude Era guy. I grew up in the Attitude Era in terms of pro wrestling. I started in 1997, and then they went PG, and it became super soft. Now, that's not to say that the PG era gave us all soft, gooey, family-friendly, kid-friendly, just soft moments. It gave us some of the best wrestling we've ever seen and some of the best storylines we've ever seen. Hell, Stone Cold Steve Austin came out of retirement during the PG era to have his first match in 19 years. Think about that. But we had The Rock versus John Cena, 2 matches there. We had HBK versus Undertaker twice. And this one specifically at WrestleMania 25 is regarded as one of the best WrestleManias of all time and best WrestleMania matches of all time. Secondly, Triple H versus Undertaker. The 2 that preceded the 2 from Shawn Michaels and Undertaker were also some of the best matches that Undertaker has had and some of the best wrestling matches that WrestleMania has ever seen too. Shawn Michaels retired during the PG era. We've seen a lot of great stuff. Brock Lesnar returned during the PG era, right in the heart of the PG era. To return from MMA after 7-8 years. Again, so lots to be thankful for in the PG era. Gave us some of the best wrestling that we've ever seen. So it's not to crap all on the PG era, but I think that WWE has realized that the PG era, the PG restrictions are starting to really suffocate their creative. It's really starting to be the one burden, that one hurdle that they're tired of trying to hop over to come up with good storylines. And that's not to say that turning TV 14 is going to be a cure-all. It still should be based in reality. It should still be based in something that you can sink your teeth into, that makes sense, that's logical, that you can create deep characters and long-term storytelling, all that. I mean, that isn't specific or it isn't unique to TV 14. This is across, I don't care what your rating is, TVG, TVPG, TV 14, TVM, TVMA, I don't care. It's something that is fundamental in storytelling, regardless of the rating. So that needs to be improved. So when people think that, oh my God, TV 14, they're going back to the Attitude Era, all of our problems are solved. Wrong, right? Wrong. I think that is 100% wrong, and that they will be proven wrong if they think that TV 14 is going to be this big old perfect, cure-all for their issues. So, but moving on here, I could talk about TV 14 much more, but let's talk about Monday Night Raw. And it opened with Titus O'Neil, who came out. Titus O'Neil. I'm thinking, has this ever happened ever? I don't think Titus has ever opened Monday Night Raw ever. And Titus O'Neil, who is the global ambassador for WWE, does a great job at it, looks the part, plays the part, speaks the part well. He is a perfect candidate. I see why Titus O'Neil was chosen to be this global ambassador. And all that means is you're the company guy. It means you are a walking infomercial for the company. You drink the Kool-Aid, you say the corporate lines. That's essentially what Titus's role is, but he does it well and he's effective. So it's not to say that I'm not crapping on that position, but if he plays it well, and he does, it can be very effective. And so, props to Titus for that, and props to WWE for choosing a guy that is well-spoken, looks good, he embodies WWE, he's a bigger-than-life guy, and never gives the company any PR issues. So, great there. But it was very suspicious that WWE did this. It was essentially a 10-minute open, I think it was about 10 minutes, maybe a little long there, to Monday Night Raw, where it was essentially just an infomercial for WWE. It was essentially a infomercial for WWE to try to deodorize what's going on with the chairman. That's all I think this was about. It was about anybody from stockholders to shareholders to people in attendance to people watching at home to investors to the people who are the major sponsors of the show. Everyone. It's just a general PR control deodorant to distract you or try to rewire your brain about what WWE is and what they stand for. That's all this was about. If you think that the timing with what's going on with Vince and what happened with Titus on Monday night is coincidence, I don't know what to tell you. It's not. And I really understand from a PR perspective, from an organizational perspective, why they did what they did to try to remind people that they're a goodwill organization, right? That they do all these charitable works, and that we love to put smiles on people's faces, which, by the way, can that be the first thing to go when WWE turns TV 14? Like, can we have a public execution of that phrase? Is there a way to have for them to live stream the death of that? Maybe, I don't know, somehow, like a public execution of that phrase of putting smiles on people's faces. That would be the first thing to go if I was in charge. But I think that, again, this is a deodorant, and it's not coincidence of what's going on with Vince compared to what's going on or what happened with Titus. And, Titus did a good job. The fans were on board for it. He reminded us of everything they do and how they stay out of politics and religion, divisive topics. We'll see how long that lasts, by the way. WWE seems to be one of the last holdouts for major organizations, especially entertainment organizations, that have yet to come out with some kind of political stance on something. I'm not saying I want them to. In fact, I do want them to truly stay out of that game. But the pressure from the outside is from, especially from the left side of the aisle, is getting very intense on organizations to publicly announce their stance on certain topics, right? Like LGBTQ, abortion, all that stuff, which I'm not discussing here my stance on that. My objective point is, though, looking at this completely neutral, is that there are organizations that are being pressured and have caved to that pressure. And by the way, there is a right answer when it comes to that pressure. There is a right answer. I think that we all know what that is. That you have to stand for these certain values or we'll quote unquote cancel you. So I think that it's admirable that WWE thus far has stayed completely out of the game. I admire the hell out of that, given the massive public pressure, and not just pressure from the outside, pressure from the inside, pressure from actual wrestlers. You want to know who I'm talking about? Sonya Deville, who has been extremely outspoken about WWE implementing gay storylines or doing some kind of LGBTQ storyline in the product. I highly disagree with this, and I'll just leave it at that. I think it is a really bad idea to do that. I don't care what her beliefs are, but she feels empowered to say so. And if you look at her Instagram, I mean, it is sickeningly repetitive with in your face about, oh my God, I'm a lesbian. Yeah, great. Every picture is with her girlfriend and saying, oh, hashtag pride. Like, who cares, right? But it's supposed to be this virtue signaling stuff. So anyway, that's as far as I'll talk about that kind of thing. But I applaud WWE for staying out of the political game, even when it's becoming increasingly toxic and it's becoming increasingly more difficult to stay out of the game. So we'll see how long they can last. But let's take one more break, guys. I promise we're going to dive deep into Monday Night Raw. We're going to rocket through this right after this. Welcome back. And if you notice, I put on a more blurred effect in the background. I forgot to do that for the first 16 minutes of the show. So 20 minutes rather. So I put a blurred effect in the background. I don't know. Sometimes I miss stuff. I forget to put my microphone on. I forget to blur the background to make it a little bit more professional from my office here. Anyway, so let's talk about Beyond Titus. We got Bianca Belair facing Carmella for the Raw Women's Championship. This was okay. And when you look at Carmella's career, as much as she doesn't look like she gets a lot of opportunities, if you stacked up the number of championship matches she's had, it's probably, she has to be top 3 in the entire women's division of WWE. Regardless of what brand, to have championship matches in WWE. Now, she doesn't win a lot of championships, but boy, does she get a lot of opportunities. And she's often used as kind of a fill-in. She's used as just the plug-and-play heel that's never going to be the top heel, never going to be the face of the division. But it's just kind of a good hand to have when you need that heel to make the babyface look good. That's all Carmella is. I'm not a huge Carmella fan from really any perspective. In ring, she's okay. I don't think she's stellar in the ring. I think that she's a notch or two below the top tier women. And I think her personality, or rather her character, is very Divas-esque. What I mean by that is her entire character embodies what was wrong with the Divas era. And what was wrong with the Divas era is they took all the women and said, hey, we're going to sexualize you in a PG way, not as bad as the Attitude Era, but we're going to give you a butterfly belt to carry around. We're not going to give you great storylines, and still really, we're going to make you rely more on your outward appearance than character depth. That's exactly what Carmella is. She talks about it herself. She's made her entire character about her outward appearance. So I'm not a big fan of her really on any level. I don't think she should be fired. I think she is a good hand. I understand why they keep her around. But I think she's really an overlap or a overspill, or there's a better term, but I can't think of it. She's a carryover. That's what I'm looking for from the Divas era. That's what she feels like to me. So the match itself was fine with Bianca and Carmella. Carmella does lose here clean. And while I was just saying she gets more opportunities than anyone, this one makes sense for her to get because of what happened last week with Becky Lynch causing the count out. And also, it immediately eliminates the possibility of a triple threat happening at SummerSlam with Bianca, Becky, and Carmella. Carmella is now erased from the equation because she got her shot here on Raw and lost clean. So now Bianca versus Becky is happening at SummerSlam, which I am a much bigger fan of, especially given the whole poetic storyline that happened at last year's SummerSlam, now circling all the way back. And this should be a lot of fun at SummerSlam. So, all right, Seth Rollins then attacked Riddle after he was a guest on the Kevin Owens show. Owens pitched teaming with Riddle, which Riddle shot down before Rollins' music hit, and he attacked Riddle from behind, hitting 2 stomps. So this is a cool storyline. I have no problem with this. Seth Rollins also beat I think he beat, yeah, he did. He defeated Ezekiel that night on Monday night as well, which seems to be the only guy he can flat out beat. I mean, we talk about Seth Rollins here on this show, and we've heard it from other places too, other podcasts I'm sure you listen to, that Seth Rollins doesn't win. Well, he does, but against Ezekiel, right? It's kind of embarrassing. And it's concerning if you're a Seth Rollins fan. But he gets the stomp here, 2 stomps on Riddle to further their program here, and it's likely going to lead to a SummerSlam match. So no problem with this. I think that those two... what I'm most excited for is not necessarily the story behind it, but the quality of the match we're going to get at SummerSlam. It's going to be a lot of fun. It was also cool to see the KO show back. Very cool. I did miss Kevin Owens. I assume, I don't know if he's a babyface or a heel right now, by the way. He's just kind of there, and the people cheer him because he's likable. Although he did an excellent job on the build to WrestleMania before he faced Stone Cold Steve Austin to get us to hate him. Very good job, and it's going to take a while to really wear that all off because of how it just how well of a job he did. All right, Damian Priest defeated Rey Mysterio with a razor's edge, and before the match, the Judgment Day promised that Dominic would join their group before the end of the night. They threatened Rey with a concerto, at which point Dominic said, okay, I'll join. And then Priest said to Dominic, it doesn't work that way. And he beat Dominic down with a chair. And then Dominic, after the match, told Sarah Schreiber or somebody who asked him, maybe Kayla Braxton, whoever, no, I wasn't really going to join. What do you mean you weren't really going to join? Would you not want to save your dad? Is that what you were saying? Like, I wasn't really going to join. Well, that's what you told them. And you would have had to save your dad. So are you saying you wouldn't have done that to save your dad? Very weird. Dominic is a kid that, I have said this many times and I will say it until I'm blue in the face. Dominic is a kid that just doesn't feel like he's ready from a personality, from a character development standpoint. In ring, he's ahead of the game, no doubt. But he looks like he's graduating high school next week. I mean, he just is... He still feels and looks and sounds young, so that's a problem if you're looking to add credibility to him. Add some actual believability to his character. He doesn't have a very commanding voice. He feels very scripted. It's all relying on daddy, papa, or whatever, whatever he's calling his dad, and then give him a kiss before he goes to the ring. It's all makes me want to vomit. That I all hope goes away with PG. But nonetheless, Dominic, does do well in the ring. He needs muscle on his body. He needs to probably grow a beard. Again, there's some things physically he needs to do on top of just working on promos. It's all stuff that's workable. It's all stuff that can be fixed. In ring, that's not a problem. Clearly, he has one of the best trainers you could possibly have in Rey Mysterio. But Rey Mysterio himself was never a great promo, so that's clearly where the weakness of Rey has carried over to Dominic. But Dominic is young enough where he could, take a year, 2 years, and just work on it in NXT, and then come back when he's absolutely ready. But do I think that's going to happen? No. He'll probably just cut his teeth on the main roster. Let's see here. Angelo Dawkins defeats Omos, but via disqualification when MVP tripped Dawkins from the outside. Adam Pearce then came out and pulled a Teddy Long and did the most predictable thing ever and said that, well, we're going to have a tag team match, the Street Profits versus Omos and MVP. So is that something that we really need, Adam Pearce to come out and do? No. It's one of the most just cliche things that WWE does. That they need to get rid of this. It doesn't always need, every time the odds are evened or there's somebody outside the ring, managing the competitors in the ring, and one interferes and then the other neutralizes the other, and there's this big brawl, and then you're like, all right, where's Teddy Long? Where is it? Let's just make the tag team match. I mean, at that point, they should just bring a referee out by default. Don't even bring Adam Pearce out. Just have a referee come out, and he's like, all right, just ring the bell. It's that. This is what I'm talking about from a production standpoint, creative, that they can just find a different way to do this instead of just predictably turning it into a tag team match. At the same time, they got 3 hours to fill. And I understand why they do this, to stretch things out normally that they wouldn't have to stretch it out if they didn't have 3 hours to fill. So I get it. But, all right, let's take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Street Profits, AJ Styles versus Theory. Loved this. Welcome back. Let's talk about the Street Profits defeating Omos and MVP via disqualification. So, both of these matches, the singles match between Angelo Dawkins and Omos that turned into a DQ, that Adam Pearce came out and said, oh, you're going to get a tag team match. The tag team match then ends in a DQ because there was interference from the Usos. After the match, the Usos helped Omos hit the Profits with choke slams. This was the most Undertaker-esque choke slam I've seen, double choke slam. So the Street Profits were laid out by the Usos and Omos and MVP. So, I mean, it's fine. I don't have much to say about this other than I think we can all say we are looking forward to the Street Profits versus the Usos Part 2 at SummerSlam. It's going to be very difficult for them as a unit to outdo what they did at Money in the Bank. That was easily the best match of the night, arguably match of the year candidate. So we'll have to see if they're able to meet that expectation or exceed it. Very difficult to do. Very difficult to match that exact quality of a wrestling match. When I think back to WrestleMania 25, when Michaels versus Taker happened in an absolute classic 5-star match, truly a 5-star match, and they tried to follow that up at WrestleMania 26 with Undertaker and Michaels, people don't really talk about that match, right? Even though we had Michaels retire in that match, one of the greatest of all time, his final match, it's not the one that everyone talks about. And because it's very, very, very difficult, if not impossible, to duplicate greatness, duplicate a magic. And when they try to force magic to happen, 99.9% of the time doesn't happen. So I think that could be the case here. Now, granted, in that matchup, if you remember in WrestleMania 26, Matt Stryker was on commentary versus Jim Ross, which I think was a huge mistake. That didn't help the presentation either. But anyway, moving on. My point with this, though, is that I don't believe that this matchup with the Street Profits and the Usos are going to be as good or better than the one at Money in the Bank, simply because it's so difficult to duplicate this or exceed it. I mean, it's nearly impossible. Magic like this happens once a year, whatever, or once in a blue moon, and it's very difficult to duplicate is my point. But still, nonetheless, it's going to be a very good match. Probably 3.5, 4 stars out of 5. So, can't wait for it. AJ Styles and Theory. So AJ Styles defeated Theory via countout after Ziggler attacked Theory outside the ring. This was really good. Not just the match itself, but Theory's promo. Man, the guy is ahead of his years. Theory is so far ahead of where he should be. It's crazy. Theory has just he's got it down from a physical perspective, from a promo perspective. He feels like he knows who he is. He's great at getting booed, everything. And he's young. It's not like this guy's like 38, 39, 40 and figured it out. He's 24 and he's figured it out. Now, is he fully polished? Is he fully fleshed out? Have we seen the best of him? No. I think it's going to take another 3 to 5 years before we see that version of him. And if he's this good now, I can't wait to see what comes in the future for Theory. Barring some ridiculous injury or him going to AEW or just stepping out of wrestling for another reason. Beyond all that, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Theory's career can bring, because he cuts such good promos. They're not jaw-dropping, but you just look at him and you're like, who's better at his age right now? Okay, maybe MJF, who's in AEW, but in WWE. Difficult to find that. And so we had Theory run down AJ Styles and call him an old grizzled veteran, and said he's jealous of him and all this stuff. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch Theory. Anytime he has a microphone, it's fun. Now, as far as the matchup goes, again, I have no problem with the matchup. I could see these two in an Iron Man match. I'd love to see them in an Iron Man match. Ziggler spoiled the ending by hitting another super kick on Theory outside the ring behind the referee's back. That caused the disqualification, or count out rather. And so we have Ziggler, for whatever reason, just deciding to target Theory. We still haven't heard why. I don't even know if WWE knows why. That's the scary part. They just do things sometimes and they're like, well, we'll figure it out down the line. Right? So I hope that's not the case here. But if they're going with Ziggler versus Theory, okay. I mean, It's not particularly interesting from a character build perspective or from any logical perspective, but from a wrestling perspective in ring, you know you're going to get a super high quality match. So there's that. But I still don't understand the reason of why. And again, I my doubts as to why WWE, or if WWE even knows why they're doing it. So, but I'm really high on Theory, really high on him, and can't say enough about him right now. But here's the thing. Here's the key. I'm not saying that I would go to an event and cheer Theory. I still want to see somebody beat his ass. That's the difference. He's not a cool heel. He's not a heel that you'd be like, well, man, I'd buy all their merch. I'd go and cheer for them because I'm a rebellious fan. No. Like, I would still boo him. I want to see somebody beat the holy hell out of him. That's how we should feel. Too often in the modern era, in the last 15, 20 years, we've seen heels that try to be cool. And you have the fans singing along to their songs and their entrance music, all that. That's not heel. Like, heels should generate true hatred. And Theory is on the road to success there. So, really, really high on Theory there. The one thing I'll say, too, about Theory's briefcase cash-in, he's calling his shot now. This does not, to me, bode well as far as his success in cashing in. I don't see how Theory becomes the undisputed champion. It doesn't make sense. It seems too early, even though I totally see what Vince McMahon has seen. We're seeing that now manifest. It seems still too early. I think it'd be too much too soon for his career. Would it be disastrous? I don't think it'd be disastrous, but I would want him to ease into it and do it when he's ready. So I think it'll be a failed cash-in, courtesy of Dolph Ziggler or somebody. Somebody screws him out of it, or maybe Brock Lesnar does. You know, somebody is going to hopefully screw Theory out of that cash-in because, and we all know this is, I think we all know that this is not going to be successful because Clash at the Castle right now is tentatively scheduled for an undisputed championship match between Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns. If you look back and see what that means for SummerSlam, Roman Reigns retains. That's it. So we get Roman Reigns as champion, at least for another month. And if Vince wants Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania for the championship, that means that he's carrying it for another, 7-8 months? This is getting absurd, guys. It's getting absurd, and to the point where people aren't even wanting... They're starting to tune out. They're starting to tune out. So, all right, I'll dive in a little more about that, and I'm going to dive into the Edge teaser right after this. Welcome back, and so let's talk one more thing about Roman Reigns, and then we're going to go right into the Edge teaser, and then close out Monday Night Raw here. So the Edge teaser, or rather, Roman Reigns as champion. I think I said this last week too on the show. It is getting absurdly long, and my belief is that WWE wants to get him to 1,000 days as champion because they don't see anywhere in the next probably 10 to 20 years of another opportunity to be able to have somebody as champion for this long. This is a once in a generation run. We may not in our lifetimes, depending on how old you are, see another championship run this long. This is crazy. 2 years Roman Reigns has been champion since SummerSlam of 2020 when he came back, interfered in the triple threat, or made it a triple threat, and interfered in the Braun Strowman-Bray Wyatt matchup for the championship, for the Universal Championship, became champion, aligned himself with Paul Heyman. Boom. We have a heel Roman Reigns, and we haven't looked back since. And it's been a lot of fun. Although the last 3 to 5 to 6 months, people have gotten sick of it. Roman Reigns they kind of ran out of ideas. And outside of a Rock Roman match, which I think all of us want to see, there's really not a bigger matchup for Roman than that. I don't think anybody wants to see Rock Roman for the championship. That may sound weird to some of you where it's like, well, wait, why? Why wouldn't you want The Rock to take it off him? The Rock is not going to be there the day after WrestleMania. He's going to go back to his movie set. That's what The Rock always does. Why would you want to see The Rock, who's going to be there less than Roman Reigns based on everything he's got going on with the XFL, movies, TV, appearances, whatever, podcasts, whatever. He's going to be there less than Roman Reigns. Would you really want The Rock to be the one to take it off of him? No. It should be somebody that they can build it with. Crazily, Theory fits a lot of those check boxes you'd want for somebody to cash in or somebody to beat Roman for that championship. He's young. He looks the part. He feels confident. He can go in the ring. You can use this to springboard his career. Check, 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 check. The only problem is he's a heel. Do people want to see a long-term heel champion go to another heel champion? That'd be a bit of a letdown, right? So that's the only problem I have with Theory being the one to break Roman Reigns' streak, is that Theory is a heel. And I don't think you want to go from heel to heel. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So, but I think people are tired of Roman Reigns. And on top of that, he's barely there. And I know that it's a huge complaint, but it's growing more and more obvious that we need a champion on Raw. We need a champion on Raw. And WWE right now is hearing it from the fans of like, hey, can we have a champion on Raw? You know, like, it's really hurting the guys. At this point, it's a net negative. You know, at this point, they are hurting the guys that are right there in WWE right now. They're hurting the people that are busting their ass to be there when they don't have a championship to compete for because Roman Reigns is running away and hiding with it. And I'm not blaming Roman. I'm blaming creative. I'm blaming WWE for this scenario. They unified the belts. Now they're having to live with the consequence of it. And now they're seeing the repercussions of signing Roman to a deal in which he's not there. He's there like one every 3 shows. He's going to be on Raw next week, but that's only because it's in Madison Square Garden. Otherwise, he wouldn't show up. And now, you know, the WWE is feeling a lot of backlash, a lot of pressure from the fans to just say, can we move on? Can we please just move on? I don't care how WWE does it. I don't care if it's the sloppiest, like, void of logic reason that they do it, how they do it. I just want the belt off of Roman. Just the WWE Championship. They can have their cake and eat it too. They can devise some ridiculous storyline, some way, some kind of legality loophole in the unification match at WrestleMania where they could split the belts back again, right? Like where Roman could still be champion. You could still have the streak going with him as Universal Champion, but also allow the WWE Championship to come back to Raw. They could do that. And I think that's the best way to do it. Undo WrestleMania. I don't care. I don't think the fans care. They just want a champion on Raw. And that to me is what they should do. Do I think they'll do that? 50-50. It's 50-50 on that. So, all right, let's get into Edge's little teaser again, which has to be Edge. I originally said it's Bray Wyatt. I don't think it's Bray Wyatt now. I kind of gave up on that a few weeks ago. And this time we got a little message from something written in blood on a mirror that said, I am coming to, and I'd imagine the next word would have been SummerSlam or wherever they're holding SummerSlam. Where are they holding SummerSlam this year? I can't remember. But wherever. I mean, it's just pointing to, boom, yeah, I'll see you at SummerSlam. It has to be Edge. It has to be going against or hunting down the Judgment Day. I'd imagine hunting down Damian Priest and Finn Balor. I don't see any other way around it. Now, people have also speculated, well, what if Edge actually rejoins the Judgment Day and says, hey, thank you guys for teaching me a lesson. To you guys who you guys beat the weakness out of me. Now I can be the leader you need me to be. That's logical, you know? So I'm very curious as to why they're doing such a build for this and what Edge is going to look like upon his return. It's very weird to me. So I have no problem with this. Obviously, Edge is going to be returning next week at Madison Square Garden. It's the perfect place to do it. Or at least we'll get an announcement from Edge, or that it's clearly Edge that he's going to be at SummerSlam and he's challenging the Judgment Day to a match or something like that. That is, I think, where they're going, and, you know, great. I have no problem with that. So, all right, then we got Asuka, Dana Brooke, Alexa Bliss defeating Nikki ASH, Tamina, and Doudrop via submission when Asuka put Nikki in the Asuka lock. So Nikki ASH has really been the butt of every joke here. She has been the one to take the pinfalls. Nikki ASH is as interesting as the paint on my wall back here, this little kind of beige paint. And like if we all sit and watch it, right? That's about how Nikki ASH feels. And you know, I don't know what to say about it. But other than the worst part about this wasn't that. The worst part about this was they implemented or integrated the 24/7 championship nonsense and playground crap into this match, into a women's match. They integrated this crap in where everyone had a chance at becoming champion. They do the stupid roll-up stuff. The 24/7 title is a walking corpse. People found it fun for like the first 6 to 12 months, and then they're like, yeah, we're done. We're done with this. This is ridiculous. The shelf life of it wasn't long, and it's not supposed to be long. That's okay. But it's a walking corpse. It's the same thing every week. It's supposed to be fun, lighthearted entertainment. It's becoming embarrassing, and when you integrate it into an actual match that should be taken seriously with the women on the show, that's a no-no to me. This was embarrassing. It further showed that this needs to die. It needs to die with the slogan of putting smiles on people's faces. Just put it all into a bonfire and torch it, please. So, all right. One more break, and then we're going to get to the main event of the show with Logan Paul and The Miz. So stay right here. We'll be right back. All right. The Miz hosted Miz TV with Logan Paul. And Logan Paul came out to just, I'd say mostly boos. I mean, it wasn't a positive reaction. And The Miz, initially declined Logan Paul's challenge. And all it took was Logan Paul to say, you have blueberries in your pants, referring to his balls. That's it. I mean, The Miz was adamant. I'm not going to say yes. No matter what, this doesn't change my answer. You can come to next week's show. I'm not going to say yes. And then, Logan Paul says, okay, but, what about, those 2 blueberries you have in your pants? And Miz is like, you're on, right? I accept. It's like, what? Where's the integrity here? It's just ridiculous. It's just like, I don't know. It was very too quick of a turn for The Miz to be convinced to face Logan Paul. And I have to say, while I think they did as good of a job as they could have to try to turn the crowd in favor of Logan Paul, I have my doubts as to when the bell rings at SummerSlam, when you're in front of 60,000 people, that the people are going to cheer for Logan Paul and boo The Miz. Why do I think that? No matter what the reaction is leading up to it, think about the crowd that's at SummerSlam. The crowd that's at SummerSlam are older crowds. I guess I would consider myself older, or even older, 40s and 50s, that may or may not bring their kids. A lot of them don't, because SummerSlam is an expensive event to go to. It's the second biggest pay-per-view of the year for WWE. It's their WrestleMania of the summer. And so it's expensive for people to bring their families. It tends to be the older generation and tends to be more male. And when I look at that demographic, I don't think that demographic has any love lost for Logan Paul. That's not the crowd that you want to cheer for Logan Paul. That's not the best odds you have from a demographic perspective of those people cheering for Logan Paul. That's not it. Your best chance would be women and children at house shows. That ain't happening. So I am very interested to hear, no matter what they do on the lead up to SummerSlam, what the crowd reaction ultimately is going to be with The Miz versus Logan Paul. Logan Paul did get attacked from behind after Logan Paul attacked The Miz. He got a couple shots in. Ciampa, who is the master of attacking people from behind, that's just what he does since he's been brought up to main roster, is just attack people from behind. Attacks Logan Paul from behind, but Logan Paul is able to fight out of it, get a couple of shots in and run. And that makes sense. It's 2-on-1. You're going to get your ass kicked if you stay in the ring. So at least for the moment, it was a successful, I think, execution of Logan Paul not being booed. And Miz does his part, this was kind of an odd main event of Raw. The last thing I'll say before I wrap it up here is this Monday Night Raw as a whole seemed like it was just, at times, not the entire time, a big infomercial for next week's Raw in Madison Square Garden. That's a lot of times that's what it feels like. And how much you want to bet next week on Raw we're going to see that footage of Roman Reigns attacking Brock Lesnar at the house show in Madison Square Garden on the lead up to WrestleMania this year, where he bloodied Brock. I mean, we saw that footage more than we saw a televised show. I mean, that was a house show. We saw more of that being replayed during the WrestleMania main event, or build to WrestleMania, than we did something that happened on the show. So to me, this is something that is going to be replayed over and over. And how about we play a little game? How many times do you think next week WWE is going to mention the phrases MSG, Madison Square Garden, or New York City. Let's play a drinking game. I'm going to say the over-under on that is about 30. They are going to be making it very well known that they are in Madison Square Garden. And I'll even take the 30 out of the announcers mentioning it. I'm just talking about people in promos. So if you're playing a drinking game with that, though, I have to say, be careful. You'll probably be drunk within 20 minutes. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching here. Again, consider following us here at the WWE Podcast. We are on every podcast platform that you can think of. And we have a Patreon that allows you to go ad-free for $1. Patreon.com/WWE Podcast. That's where you go. Really hope you guys join us there. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Dupont Network. And I'll talk to you guys next week.